Picture this. You're queuing up into your next match of Marvel Rivals, nervous at the prospect of losing your hard-earned ranked points, and then one of your teammates hovers Lord Magneto. It's like like you can tell right off the bat, that mag is going to be a rock that your whole team can rely on, and all you have to do is focus on playing your best because he's going to move heaven and earth to keep everyone on the team safe. It's not the Lord icon you have faith in. Nowadays, everyone knows Lord is just a measure of how long you've been playing. It's not even exactly Magneto's meta viability. There are other, more busted heroes that don't offer nearly as much reassurance from the pick screen.
Oh!
It's something else, something deeper. Something all Magneto mains seem to share, as though picking up the character alters your brain chemistry, opens your mind, molding you into the shape of the ideal tank.
Listen, if you enjoy Mag, you will be a good husband. But then your brain just fucking expands and you start seeing the code of the game. You see the matrix, the numbers, and how everything flows when you play Magneto.
And it's not just him. Wolverine mains seem to have a distinct lack of self-preservation instincts, as though their sole purpose in life is to make you feel pain at any cost. Star-Lord players have a way of slipping out of situations that no other character would get out of unscathed. And don't even get me started on Jeff mains. Every single one of them seems liable to get distracted and start chasing a butterfly mid-team fight, and then still end up with MVP at the end of the game.
I took MVP from Polly. Because all of my assists just...
At first glance, this doesn't seem that odd. After all, same character, same role, same playstyle, right? But there's more to these consistencies than raw mechanical similarity. There's a feel to each character that's consistent from game to game and player to player. When I first picked up Rivals, the thing that got me instantly enamored with this game was the character design. And I'm not talking about the player models, although those are excellent. I'm talking about the kits, the gameplay. Every hero in this game feels fun to play, and all in different ways. This isn't a random coincidence, it's the result of a consistent design philosophy. And it's that philosophy that I want to explore in this video, starting from the foundation and building our way up to the key feature that gives Rivals its identity. My hope is that by the end, you'll have a new appreciation for what heroes are in Marvel Rivals, not just what they do, and understand how the game uses its mechanics to quietly shape you into the hero you want to be. But before we get to that, we have to start with the basics. And where better than with the most fundamental unit of play possible? A button. If I gave you a button to press, how many pushes would you give it before you got bored? 3? 6? Probably not more than 10. Making buttons fun is one of the core challenges of game design. After all, pushing buttons is all we as players really do. But how does one make pushing a button fun? The key is in timing and reward. If I told you that pressing the button would earn you $20, then you would probably press it a lot more. And if I told you that you only got the money if you could line up your press with a randomly flashing light, well then now we have a game on our hands. Rivals is full of fun buttons. Star-Lord's flip makes him invincible for a few frames. Loki's snap swaps him with one of his clones, but the most fun single button in Rivals has got to be Venom's symbiotic resilience. This ability gives Venom bonus health, with the catch being that the amount granted increases the less actual health Venom has. This turns resilience into a kind of gamble. Waiting to activate it could lead to a bigger payoff, but it could also lead to you falling prey to any number of CC abilities and instantly exploding. Here's the genius thing though. You never get punished for activating symbiotic resilience, only rewarded less. So the button is always fun to press. It's even fun not to press it. Holding resilience through a dicey moment and using it later feels rewarding, because you kept your cool under pressure. With only a single binary activation requirement, symbiotic resilience creates tension, anticipation, and payoff. An entire miniature gameplay loop. Rivals is full of these mini-games, or toys as I like to call them. Bucky's abilities reloading his gun, Emma's laser charge, Gambit's cards. Almost every character has some kind of resource, cooldown, or gauge that requires constant management. This makes each character fun to play on their own, outside of the macro game of a match. When queue times get long or someone takes a break and we visit the practice range, All of us have a character or characters that we gravitate towards. Sometimes it's our mains, but sometimes it's someone completely different. Either way, we occupy ourselves by playing with their toys, optimizing their rotations not for the purpose of winning a game, but simply for the inherent reward built into playing the character. These toys act as motivators, which the devs then use to encourage or discourage certain behaviors and create loops. Monopoly and Risk are some of my favorite board games, and I never get a chance to play them. Anytime I'm at a social gathering with enough people and I pull out one of those boxes, I always receive the same complaint. That'll take too long. Even when I suggest it early, at a gathering we all know is going to last a while, people hesitate. They put it off and they keep putting it off until eventually the complaint becomes valid. The problem isn't the amount of time Risk takes up. It's committing all that time to just Risk that people have a problem with. As humans, we hate doing the same thing continuously. We either get bored or exhausted. Game developers know this, and that's why they build loops. A good example of a loop in Rivals is Thor. Thor's awakened state does some of the best consistent damage in the game, but activating it requires all three of your Thor Force. And while Thor Force does regenerate over time, the real way you get it back is by using Thor's other abilities, which each generate Thor Force in their own way. On paper, it might seem like the most fun version of Thor would be one where you could stay awakened forever. After all, that's when he's the strongest. That's where the reward is. But we got to experience this in the Zombies game mode that came out this year, and after the novelty of it wore off, that game became pretty boring. All you would do is hold down left trigger and sort of aim, but not really because your projectiles were so big. There just wasn't much of an experience there. The real fun in Thor is that period of high activity, awakening, is followed by a period of lower activity with a specific goal. If you've ever played Thor, then you know that building Thor Force is almost, if not as fun as the time you spend awakened, just in a different way. It's more strategic. How can I get the maximum value from my hammer throw? My bubble? Is it worth using my dash and spending one force? Balancing these factors to maximize return provides small satisfaction, while also building anticipation, making it all the more satisfying when you finally awaken and the gameplay becomes about tearing through as many enemies as you can in your limited time. Almost every hero in Rivals has some kind of loop, whether that's through building resources like Thor or managing cooldowns. Thor's Thor Force is the most expressive, so it makes for a good example, but the basic timed cooldowns can also create interesting gameplay loops. The key is to design abilities that want to be activated at different times. If you were to use all of Psylocke's abilities all at once, for example, you would have 8 full seconds where you could do nothing but shoot. But in gameplay, you usually want to use your shurikens, and then finish off an enemy, then maybe dash, use your invisibility, maybe another dash to get away, and by the time you've done all that, your shurikens are back online. The loop completes itself, and you never find yourself doing nothing. Or worse, the same thing forever. The only problem with looping gameplay is that if you're not careful, you can very quickly take away player agency. If one behavior leads to another, which leads to the next, which leads to the first, you can become trapped on a proverbial hamster wheel, a button-pushing robot instead of an active decision maker. The game becomes boring, and we're stuck right back at square one. The solution to this is to make the loop adaptable and create options for the player rather than railroading them into a set path. To do this, the devs have to change the way they think about abilities. Rather than saying, "What do we want the player to do with this?" they start saying, "What can the player do with this?" And it's from this line of logic that we reach the next step in character design: tools. A tool is sort of like a toy in that it's a mechanic that rewards the player for interacting with it properly. The difference is that where toys give a set reward under set conditions, a tool can be used in a variety of different ways for the player to accomplish different goals. Like how Cloak's Fade can be used for mobility or protection. And that's a key thing I notice in Rivals tools specifically. These devs like to attach two seemingly separate uses to the same ability. Like Star-Lord's Flip. It gives you iframes, as I've mentioned, but it also reloads your guns. This seems like a kind of random pairing at first glance, but it's a genius move on their part. Think about it. Imagine if Star-Lord had a flip and a fast reload on separate cooldowns. You would use each ability under the proper circumstances and you wouldn't really think too much about it. Without even realizing it, you'd become the button-pushing robot. But by combining the two, Rivals forces you to make a decision each time you push the button. Am I okay with upping my damage right now in exchange for leaving myself vulnerable in a minute? The perfect use case, needing invulnerability and a reload at the exact same moment, is rare. Most of the time, it's a decision between the two. This allows players to express themselves through their playstyles. Some Star-Lords, like me, burn through both flips quickly to secure kills, while others save them for escape situations. Neither one is the wrong way to play him, they're just different styles. The real magic of tools is when you integrate them into loops to convert the boring treadmill into a branching path. They especially nailed this philosophy in Daredevil's kit. If you were to break down Daredevil's loop, it would probably go something like this. Jump in, attack with Fury, rebuild your Fury, repeat until you're in danger, at which point defend yourself, and then run away. Notice how I didn't specify any abilities in this loop. That's because most, if not all, of these steps can be represented by multiple of Daredevil's powers. For example, step 1, jump in, can be accomplished through either his dash, his grab, or through simple movement, each with different pros and cons. The dash will blind a foe and it will get reset if you kill a target, but if you fail, you lose it and your marking ability for the full cooldown. The grapple, on the other hand, has the added benefit of repositioning an enemy, which can be helpful under some circumstances. But it can also be used on terrain for better movement, so you might be inclined to save it. And by that logic, jumping in without burning any cooldowns loses your element of surprise a little bit, but it also saves all your abilities because, oh, did I mention, all of them can be used for step 3, rebuild Fury, and step 5, run away. This multi-dimensional design means that you as a player need to be constantly making decisions, picking your path from multiple choices, doing your best to guide yourself to the outcome you want. But by encasing these decisions in a tight loop, the game also makes sure you're never confused about where to go next. So far, I've talked a lot about the mechanical ways that Rivals generates fun for you as a player. Buttons, loops, and tools. And they're all important, well-executed parts of this game's design philosophy. But if all this game nailed were some basic principles of game design, it really wouldn't be anything special. What Rivals does with these tools, what sets it apart, is something deeper, something almost unique to itself. It's the way all these aspects of hero design come together to become greater than their sum, to create what made the Marvel franchise famous in the first place: stories. When I booted this game up for the first time a year ago, the first thing I did was to jump into the practice range and try out my favorite hero of all time: Spider-Man. Yes, that's right, I was a filthy Spidey main at first, I grew out of it. But when I first started the game, I saw Spider-Man as a sort of litmus test. He's the most popular hero of all time in a franchise that's half of this game's title. And on top of that, he has one of the most nuanced and flexible power sets ever imagined. I figured that if this game could manage to nail the feeling of Spider-Man, then it might actually be everything it was hyped up to be. And when I tried out his web slinging for the first time, I realized that my initially low expectations for this game needed some serious reconsideration. I spent around 4 hours on Rivals that day, and almost all 4 of them were swinging around the range on Spidey. I was hooked. I'd only experienced this exact feeling once before, playing the Insomniac Spider-Man games. Obviously, those games do more to deliver the full web-slinging fantasy, but the fact that they're even comparable is astounding. For a single character out of 33 on launch in a multiplayer competitive game, to capture the feeling of Spider-Man almost as well as his dedicated story game is an insane feat. And every hero in Rivals gets the same treatment. Their kits aren't designed primarily around fun or around balance, though they are made to be both. Their primary purpose is to tell you the stories of their character, their motivations and flaws, their beliefs and ideals, by putting you in their shoes and letting you live them out. My favorite example of this is Doctor Strange. Strange's power, as you might know, is magic. Just magic. There are no hard set rules, and while he'll use a couple of the same tricks, he can conceivably do anything. I have trouble seeing how you would properly condense a power set like that into a story game, let alone a competitive multiplayer one. Maybe you could start from one cool power like his portal and build around it. But then you risk oversimplifying the character. Perhaps you pick a role you need for balance purposes and just retrofit Strange's aesthetic onto it. But people will notice, and Strange fans will feel cheated. No, the key that Rivals discovered is to start with the character, the story, and build up from there. Every representation of Doctor Strange I've ever seen, from his feature films to his cameos in animated series, has always gone through the same story arc. There's some ancient evil or unsolvable problem that needs to be dealt with, and some taboo magic that's necessary to do so. Strange's dilemma is always the same, learning how to use the dangerous magic without letting it consume him, and sometimes learning that the consequences of his power are worse than the initial conflict. This is what Strange is, what he represents as a character. Power comes at a cost, and must be wielded responsibly because, left unchecked, it will become its own punishment. And Rival's interpretation of Strange bakes this principle directly into his gameplay loop. He has some of the highest burst damage potential out of any tank on the roster, thanks to his toy, Maelstrom of Madness, which converts damage dealt into dark magic that can then be released all at once. I know for a fact that I've hit so many kills on DPS who thought they were safe, only to be vaporized in a flash of black magic. It's one of the most satisfying parts of playing Strange. It's the kind of reward that makes you hungry for more, pushing you to play aggressively. But if you do so, you'll pay the price. The second effect of dark magic, which is that holding on to it inflicts you with anti-heal, and that's only the mechanical consequence. As a tank, it's your responsibility to protect your team. If you go off chasing kills, you leave them exposed, and on top of that, you leave yourself in a dangerous, overextended position. Learning how to play Strange is learning to control yourself, waiting for the proper time and location to unleash your awesome power, and then recognizing when you need to pull back, despite that little voice telling you to push forward anyway. This is Strange's loop. And to facilitate this, the game gives you a few tools. His cape of levitation to improve your positioning or escape after you've made a bad call. His ultimate to hold enemies in place and give you double damage on your Maelstrom. And of course his portal, which people have been discovering new uses for since launch. These devs created an experience that represents what it means to be Doctor Strange, and they did it with only 6 buttons. This facet of Strange's kit isn't a one-off. Every character in Rivals feels represented, not just in name or appearance, but in spirit. Their kits aren't just functional. They communicate who that character is, what they struggle with, and how they succeed. You aren't just playing as these heroes, you're embodying them, and their mechanics are what teach you how. It's hard to imagine the devs reaching this level of consistency, capturing the essence of these characters, without having a genuine love for the source material. And that's what I love about Rivals. It represents my favorite quality in video games: storytelling through design, shaping the player's experience while still letting them make it entirely their own. I could break down every hero and the small design decisions that go into making them special, but that would be way too much for one video. So instead, consider this an introduction, a proof of concept for a new series that I'm making this year, where I break down each hero, not just their abilities and strategies, but the philosophy behind their design and the role they play in the game as a whole. Rivals balancing is famously wonky, so my goal isn't to teach you a meta that will be outdated within a few months. I want to get to the heart of each character, to the things that won't change no matter how much you tweak their numbers. If that sounds interesting to you, consider subscribing so you don't miss those videos when they come out. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, leaving a like lets me know you want to see more of this kind of analysis. I'll see you all next time, and until then, never surrender.